Sage reflections, sage reflections, sage reflections, real life of faith, just truth. Sage reflections, sage reflections, sage reflections, real life of faith, just truth. Sage reflection, this is sage reflections. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sage Reflections. Jesse here.
Sammy here.
And we're happy to have you guys right back on our podcast.
You bet, you bet, you bet.
I hope you all have been doing great. And we have something very interesting this morning. So, we wanted to talk about something else because that was something that happened through the week. But then, as we got ready, we had a different revelation. So, we're having that leading to talk about that one today. And we really do hope that wherever this message is for, also ourselves, will be blessed. And yeah, just sit tight and enjoy. I would pass on to Sammy because he got the revelation this morning. And yeah, we'll go from there.
Yeah. Let's call that an inspiration. Revelation, I don't know. Yeah, I want to tread cautiously on that. But yeah, absolutely. It was a revelation indeed. By the time we started talking about it, there was so much that we could pull out of it that it just blew our minds. And we're like, oh, if we're gonna talk about this in details, it will be like hundreds of episodes that could come out of this. Anyway, I'll stop babbling and go straight to the point. So I ran into a picture on my phone. How many of us are familiar with aircraft carriers? So aircraft carriers are large ships that, the world superpowers have, and they are, sent out on peacekeeping trips, surveillance, and all of that, and they have aircrafts on them, and aircraft launch from them and land on them and all of that. And most of them are the more advanced ones are nuclear powered run, so they can go for years before they have to come back and be serviced or whatever. So I ran into a picture of the largest aircraft carrier, the USS Gerald R. Ford, owned by the United States. It is massive. But in this picture, it was on a dry dock. So a dry dock is where the ship comes aboard, and then they drain out all the water, and you can literally see the whole ship dry from the very bottom to the very top. And this picture showed the ship on a dry dock with a human being standing next to its bow. Like the bow is like the little, to describe a bow of a ship, from the front, it would be the little rounded top that kind of cuts through the wave. And the size of the human compared to the bow, it blew my mind. The human being wasn't even anywhere compared to the height of the bow of this ship. So, for example, for reference, the length of the ship is 1,106 feet long. For those of us who are used to meters, that's 337 meters. Like I ran track in school very briefly. A 100-meter race is a long. 400 meters is when you run around the whole arena one time. 300 meters long is how long this ship is. The flight deck, the width of the flight deck is about 256 feet, which is about 78 meters. Um, the height of the ship is 250 plus from the keel to the top of the mast. And this thing is massive, just compared to a human being. Like when the ship is placed in water, it displaces about 100,000 tons of water. For those of my physics juggernauts, those who love physics in secondary school or high school, or whatever it's called where you grew up, we talk about displacement, the amount of water that a body displaces or pushes aside for it to float on water. This thing is massive. It displaces 100,000 tons of water. And in comparison to a human being, like an average human being is probably like 5'9", 5'10", 5'11", and this thing is like 250 feet tall. Like, but then it hit me. I was like, this thing was built by humans. A human being, not one person, obviously, hundreds, if not thousands, if not millions of people invested some sort of technology. Because if you go down to the little pieces that went into it, the steel, it wasn't one person. It was the iron ore was mined, and the other materials were mined to combine to form the steel from different places. The electronic components, the plastic, the silicon, the metal, every piece, that the copper that was used for the wiring, every little thing that came together to create this massive ship was contributed by many people.
Mm.
And then I just pondered on it. There's this little human that's kind of a representation of the humanity of the human race standing next to this massive ship that humans created. And then I was like, now think about the creative capacity of God. The God that created everything that we humans put together to create this ship. And then I started to wonder. I was like, and I brought it up with my wife Jessie. I was like, what do you think about this? Like how do we? How is it that sometimes we're so quick to devalue the capacity of God and how much God is big and how much God can do? Think about the mountain ranges. Think about the universe. Think about the earth that we live on. Think about how strategically placed the earth is from the sun. If you are too close, you would die from heat. If you're too far, you would die from cold. It is placed strategically. And I'm a firm believer of creation. I don't believe in the Big Bang came out of nothing. That is absolute nonsense, in my opinion. Nothing can come from nothing. Then somebody has to bring orderliness, and this is what our God did. Now imagine his capacity. Imagine what he can do in our lives. And sometimes we limit his capacity in our lives. He has given, or he didn't just make us and make all of these things and say, oh, you know what, go enjoy them. He also gave us his creative ability. That's why we as humans can make something that incredible.
Yeah.
And then if you cast your mind on, for example, Adam, the first man created, if Adam were to see that ship back in his days, he would be like, there's no way I'm going to make that. But humans did make that. And, you know, I've seen some documentaries where people are marveled about the pyramids. Oh, was it built by giants? It's humans that made that. It is the creative capacity that God has given us humans. And you know, I've been privileged to work on so many different construction sites, pipeline sites, all kinds of things, and I've seen engineering feats that blew my mind. And if you were not there and to see those things happen, when it's described to you, it would sound like a folk tale. But in all of this, I just want us to focus on the capacity that God has deposited in us.
Thank you so much, Sammy. Thank you for that great description, illustration. It's actually something you could visualize. I remember when I saw the picture, until you pointed out the guy standing, I didn't notice him at first. Like that kind of shows you how small he looked compared to the sheep. You know, when you look at that, you then realize that we as human beings have the ability to do something bigger than we think we could,
Mm.
and something that might look bigger than us. I remember you told me this that you heard as well, or that was said to you. If your dreams or your vision doesn't scare you, you haven't started something like that. So when you think about that, you also mentioned that it wasn't just one person, and that is the truth. I don't think one person would come with that idea and also do the physical building. So it took brain work, physical work. I'm sure some people maybe had some spiritual faith thing going on in one corner, and people giving emotional support. Like I would always come back to my holistic teaching. It took all that aspect of life and so many people coming together to make that happen. When you look at it now with the creation, because we're using God as an example here, because he created us and gave us that creative ability. If you look at the creation in the book of Genesis, it says that in the beginning God created. And I want you to understand that the Trinity actually came together to make sure that what we have today is what it is. So I wanted to just point out that no man is an island. So in the beginning, God what created. And then when you look back on the second verse, it said, and the Spirit of God hovered over the waters. And the Spirit of God, that is the Holy Spirit. So there you have God the Father, and then you have God the Holy Spirit. And then when you look at the third one, it said, and God said, let there be light. It doesn't expressly say Jesus there, but when you look at the book of John chapter 1, verse 1 to 3, where it talks about in the beginning was the world. And if you look all the way down, it talks about how through him all things were made. So that was where the Son came into play. So it took the Trinity to observe what was going on, decide what they were going to do, and started the creation. So when God has placed that creative ability in us as humans, we need to understand that, one, we have the capacity to do beyond what, maybe your mind or your bank account or the people around you is saying you could do. You have the ability to actually put that vision on that paper and also actualize it. But then you need the resources. Coming back to a few podcasts we did talking about resources, you need the resources, the human resources, the financial resources, probably depending on what you are trying to do, to actually execute that. And sometimes when you are creating something, it may not make sense to the people around you. Think about Noah. Noah, when he was building the ark, after he got the instruction to build the ark, the people were laughing. Some people looked at him like, this guy is crazy. But he was doing something that legit. If you see an elderly man just outside right now building a boat in your neighborhood, you probably would laugh too. But there was something that was different. One, yes, he had the creative ability, but secondly, he heard from God. So for you to be creative and do something extraordinary, it is also important to hear from God, because that is what is going to keep you when people start talking. That is what is going to keep you when you don't have all the support that you thought you would get. So I want us to know that the creative ability of God is something that I don't think we can really phantom or put together. And he made everything in his wisdom. Like, it's not something that man could sit down and start thinking like God. It will be quite challenging for us to put into perspective what he was thinking or what he wanted to achieve. But it's quite encouraging to see what the God we serve can do, has done, and is doing. And if we know that we are serving this God and that creative ability is in us, and that we can come together as an organization, as a body, as a family, as individuals, as a conglomerate to actualize a dream or this dream, that is something that we should actually sit down and think about for a second. And not be discouraged. I think that's the big part. Understanding that we can walk in unity, understanding that we can build something that is bigger than what we might physically look like or what we might be envisioning right now, and understanding that yes, you may not get all the support that you need, but the resources that you have right now, you could come together and make that work, because the spirit to create and the ability to create is deposited right inside of you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I, as you were talking, I kind of pondered on something that, we reflected on previously. And, I know when we reflected on it, we were like, how does that go? But just listening to you, it came back to me, and it hammered in my head. So I'm going to talk about it. And thank you for bringing that point earlier. It's the Tower of Babel.
Oh yeah, I kind of brought that up.
Because when God looked down and saw what they were doing, he said they were in unison. And because they were in unison, he said there's nothing that they want to do that they can achieve.
Yeah, that's right.
So like the creative capacity of man increases when we work together. So if even the Bible tells us in spiritual warfare, one which is 1,000
and two which
is 10,000.
Here we go with
Now
unity
think
again.
about a million people coming together to build something. And the biggest issue with the world today is the inability to work together. Like that's why we see countries fighting each other. That's why we see um, tribes fighting each other. That's why we see different people with different religious beliefs fighting each other. If for 1 second everybody laid down their arms and thought about what is best for humanity, how can we put our resources together without any selfishness, without any biases, just for the good of your neighbor. Think about the good we can do. Think about the think about what we could achieve.
So your creative ability is could be limited where in a place where there is no unity and in a place where the motive is not right.
Absolutely.
Because the God that we serve that has put that creative ability in us has a pure heart. He's holy. And everything that he has placed in us and the wisdom he has given to man is for the benefit of your neighbor, really. It kind of starts from there.
Yeah.
That's why I say love your neighbor as yourself. So, and God is love. Yeah. So when we start to deviate from that and start using the, in quote, creative ability for things that are not, beneficial or harming the person next to you, then that is an error in creation.
Yeah. And I just want to touch on that limit being limited. For example, think about most of the beautiful buildings that we've seen everywhere, and sometimes the name that goes is the name of the architect that built it, but the architect can have that wonderful design, beautiful inspirations, but if a structural engineer says no, we're not going to do that, and decides to withhold his own knowledge on how they can, for example, make a whole building or a whole part of a building be suspended in the air, or make a whole floor feel like a Lego block that is sticking out a lot more than the others, then you start to see the limitation of our creative capacity. Someone can design and say, I want this to look exactly like this. And then the other person who can, because probably their name is not going to be reflected, finally could say, no, we can't do that. We'll go for the basic structure that everybody would not notice. So in our bid to chase recognition, sometimes we limit not just our creative ability, other people's creative abilities. So at the end of the day, we have to ask. I remember, like, there's been a few projects I've worked on. At the end of the day, it's not my name that went on there. This was built by Samuel. But if you take me to that project site, I can tell you the one of 10 things out of the 10 million things that I did to make that place work. That if I didn't do it, maybe somebody else could have. But if there was nobody else that could have done that, that project would have failed. But then it's not my name that's on the contractor. That is the general contractor on paper. But this is just an illustration, guys. If I said, no, I'm not going to do this one thing, that means I didn't contribute to the success of that creation. So it is important for us to always remember that joint creativity can achieve so much more.
So with that being said, you can create and you can be part of something being created. I know you mentioned earlier about as human beings, we can't say we're creating out of nothing. We can't just speak into the air and we create a human. God has that supreme capacity. But like you just rightly said, we have a part to play with every creation. I want us to look at it this way. If it be any encouragement, because I'm asking the Lord, okay, what more do you want us to get out of this today? If there be any encouragement, I want us to realize that whatever we think we are trying to achieve today had already happened. And that is why we can be rest assured that it doesn't matter the limitations you think you have as a human being. It's not enough to stop you from creating what God has placed in you to create or placed in your heart to create. When you think about it, let's say a surgeon, for example. I know we go to school, we learn those things, go to the theater, and then we do it. But you have to realize that in the book of Genesis, chapter 2, verse 21, he performed the first surgery. He said, "So the Lord God caused the man to fall into deep sleep. And while he was sleeping, he took one of the man's ribs and then closed up the place with flesh." So when we start having this, push and urge to actually do something, it is important for us to. You can look back into the scripture. There's so many instances and examples that would probably encourage you to know that you can actually make this dream happen. I was speaking to someone quite recently and sharing one or two things, and they said something that really melted my heart, and I loved that comment, and I had to reflect on it for a second. They said the reason why they love talking to me is because I don't try to shoot down their dreams. And they find that most times when they come up with this visions and dreams and what they want to achieve and stuff like that, some people look and, well, yeah, you can't do that. I want us to refrain from that. I know there are certain realistic things where things don't look like this is possible, but can we be part of the creation, or that creative, I don't know, that creative space? Can we be part of what is going on in a positive light? Can we influence that person positively? Can we put it down and say, okay, how can I support my sister? How can I support my brother? How can we make this happen? What can I bring to the table? You might not be able to bring anything, but you can bring your prayers. You can bring your encouragement, because let's not forget why this conversation came up. It was the US the ship we're talking about. There was a purpose for it, and they came together and they did it, and now they're thinking of doing even more, because what they initially did that is this big worked, and is still working, and is serving whatever purpose it was built for. And I just want us to just know that even if when you look, even farmer, agriculture, and all that, remember that Cain in the Bible, the son of Adam and Eve, also he tilled the ground. Yeah. So that farming already started from then, and there's no profession that you want to bring out that wasn't already in the scriptures. There's no thing you want to create that you didn't see someone probably even do more. Like I mentioned, Noah. So if you want to create something big and you want to build, think about Noah. He listened and he did it. So you and I have a creative ability. You and I have that wisdom that God has placed in us to be able to make that vision happen. So do not be discouraged. Don't get shut down. Don't let it ache you. I know when you're building, where we can relate, there are certain building phases in our life where it has required tears. It has required sweat, blood. You just know that you are in that building phase. Building is not always easy. Creating something is not always fun. When the Lord, when God started the creation, remember he had to separate this and that, put light and darkness, and did this and did that. Like he had to do all of those things before he could rest. So I don't think you will just come in one day and expect everything to show up. Light was created and then separated from darkness, and then remember the firmament and separated from the waters and the dry land and vegetation, and the sun, moon, and star, and the fishes and the birds. He had to put things in place. Eventually, then he made man. And even after he made man, let me add to that, he actually said it is not good for man to be alone. I will make him a helpmate suitable for him. Yeah. So man needed somebody to support him. Yeah. To actually actualize what God has placed inside of him.
And this boils down to what we're trying to hammer today. Like, we are all creative beings. We've been designed to make stuff, to do better with what we already have. But the capacity we have is quite limited when we work by ourselves. It is a lot easier when you do it with somebody or with a group of people of like minds. I will have to clarify that. There has to be likeness of minds, oneness of purpose. It cannot be two people pulling on a cloth in different directions. They must be pulling in the same direction. But when we have that unison, there's so much more that we can accomplish. But the problem is that sometimes we underrate how much we are putting in because it looks so insignificant. For example, if you, I was listening to a podcast of where somebody was given an example of they had an issue with their vehicle. I think the vehicle probably cost around $200,000, but the issue was a little cable that was supposed to transmit power that is probably less than $50, and that
Wow.
rendered a $200,000 vehicle inoperable
Wow.
until that had to be replaced. So the person who makes that $50 cable might think, oh, I'm not contributing anything. I'm barely contributing anything. But your $50 cable is the one thing that can shut off that entire $200,000 vehicle if it is absent or if it is damaged. So I want us to get away from undermining what we bring to the table
Yeah.
because we think it's so small.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to realize that regardless of how small what you bring to the table is, it makes a contribution to the general house. Think about the story of the parable of the talents.
Yeah.
The master had a lot. He gave one person 5, he gave one person 2, he gave one person 1. Compared to what the master had, that was insignificant. The 5 brought 5 more. The 2 brought 2 more. The 1 chose not to do anything. So let's ignore that 1 and focus on the guy that had 2. The guy that had 2 put in the effort to bring 2 more. Now the master has 2 more than he originally had before he traveled. Regardless of, for example, let's say the master had 900,999, and that 1 extra from the 2 he brought in was what was supposed to make him a millionaire. So, for example, if you're a millionaire today and you take $1 off, you're no longer a millionaire.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how close you are to a million, you're still not a millionaire. That is how important the contribution you bring to the table is. Every single one, every effort, every sweat, every contribution, no matter how small, contributes to the greater good. Probably you might not think it contributes to you or your family or any of that directly, but it contributes in the long run to everybody, to somebody else's vision, to somebody else's goal, to somebody else's drive. And they always say one good turn deserves another. If you do for somebody, someone will do for you. God is not unfaithful.
He is not unjust for sure. I like the illustration you gave, because if you also look at the boat, the ship we're talking about, it's actually quite expensive. I believe it costs billions of dollars. But you take one thing off,
Yeah.
from the right
Probably something
location,
that costs $1,000.
it would just not work.
It will wreck the whole thing.
So when you look at the value you place on yourself, money is not necessarily the main thing. It's not about how much in money. What other value do you bring to the table? Even to yourself. What other value do I bring to myself? Yes, I'm a creative being, but what value? We undermine ourselves so much that we are the ones that go, I don't think I can do that. No. I don't think so. And you see people telling, look at Gideon. Oh, mighty man of valor. The dude is like, whoop.
Talking to me or what?
Did someone speak? And he was like, okay, I'm gonna ask for a sign.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I know you did the first one, Lord. I'm just
Do
gonna
another one.
let's
Yeah.
do another one. Just show me that, because where I'm
Let's make
coming,
sure that.
where I'm coming from, yeah, we
Yeah.
don't even have no mighty man
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that was what God was seeing. So on the other side, what you need to know what God is saying about you.
Mhm.
You need to know what God is saying about you. That ship wasn't just built to sit down there on the dock and just look all nice and shiny
Mhm.
and look bigger than everybody else, but it had a purpose it was serving.
Mhm.
And that is why when God also created us, there was a purpose.
Mhm.
That was why He created us. So there is no creativity without a purpose.
Mhm.
So by the time you realize the purpose of what you're doing, why you're created, and even the what is your purpose today? I got up today. What is the plan? What am I trying to achieve? That would make it easier for you to actually discover your creating ability, because that's where you have to start bringing out all your asanas and start getting to work.
Mhm.
But if you wake up and have no vision, nothing, then you can't achieve anything. I remember growing up, and we always, I don't know how me and my siblings came up with this song. Maybe it's a song that most people know. But we always go, a man on a mission without a vision ends in division. I don't know how we came up with that. And I would draw it all the time. A man on a mission without a vision ends in division. I don't know if we, but now it's making a lot of sense, because now I'm older to realize that we are on a mission. Every day you wake up, you are on a mission.
Absolutely.
You are on a mission. You have the creative ability. You have God as your father. You probably have the resources. If you're fortunate enough, you have everything in your disposal. The fact that you are breathing and your life is the main thing. You probably need to start your day because you are alive, and that is good. And now, if you now step out with no vision, you will definitely end in division, because you have nowhere you're going. I can't just get in my car and start driving. I don't know where I'm driving to. Even if I go, yeah, I just want to go on a drive. I know I'm going on a road. I know I'm going to turn left. That is a destination in my head. I can't just go and start beating all the red lights and just start going with no direction in life at all. So, the creative ability that God has placed in us, we need to give ourselves a little more credit, because the Bible says, yeah, God's.
Mhm.
So he has placed that he has inside of us. But then we have to work together. We have to understand our purpose. We have to be in unity. We have to seek God's counsel. We need to stop devaluing ourselves. And we need to have a good motive as we achieve these things.
Yeah, absolutely. We need to see beyond what society is telling us. We need to see beyond what our experience is telling us. Think about just the comparison of the sheep that we're talking about. Like a human being, for example, I think the average weight of the human brain is like 3 pounds. And then that brain sat and combined with a whole bunch of other 3 pound brains to build a ship what that weighs 100,000 tons. That is creative ability. Before even people built, some people sat and drew the
They
design,
did, yes.
applied all the laws of physics that they could think
Yes.
of,
Yes.
probably built tiny models and tested it all to
Yes.
make sure that this ship would stay and not sink.
Mm-hmm.
It can carry all that weight we're hoping it will carry. That is what you as a human can do. Sometimes we need to push the limits of what we think is possible.
Yes, that's right.
We need to test ourselves. We need to push ourselves. We need to say, okay, I have succeeded in this. How farther can I go? Like, think about somebody that had never driven a car before. The first time behind the wheels is going to feel so scary.
Yeah, when they're getting.
And then eventually they get so comfortable that they can drive and do things, although they're not supposed to. But just that's the capacity of continuity in growth, continuing to push the limits of what you can do as a person. They say if you stop growing, you start dying. Mm-hmm. That is that a term? We need to keep growing, even in our creative ability. Ask yourself today, like, what am I building? What am I working on that is bigger than everything else I already did? Am I just existing or am I growing? Am I developing something that would outlive me? Something that would affect future generations, not just something that just sits there and it's not significant. It might not even be completed during your own time here on earth, but somebody would come and apply your laws. For example, most of the laws of physics
Yeah.
that these engineers and designers use, they didn't come up with those laws. Somebody experienced nature, so thought about the laws, tested the laws, and proved that they were correct. And it was adjusted over the years, over the decades, over the centuries, and now those laws have been applied.
Let's come academic here. You know, when I what you're saying right now is just ringing in my head is that sometimes people don't want to be accountable.
Mm.
And where I'm driving with that comment is you talked about the laws, you talked about people mapping out that sheep and then testing things and all that. We could spend all day analyzing all they did because I'm sure the researchers are out there. But then you realize that people were ready to be accountable.
Mm.
That is why those laws were used.
Mm-hmm.
They tested it out.
Mm-hmm.
They did not see failure as the end because I'm pretty sure that those scientists sometimes failed. Mm-hmm. And you can read that in books. But they tried again and they tried again. And sometimes they come up with something, another guy comes up and kicks that law out because he's seen something else that now works with the present day. Mm-hmm. We need to learn to be accountable. We need to own our decisions and we need to be ready to face whatever comes with it. Like these things are the reality of life. Mm-hmm. We need to be accountable. I don't want to use the word we need to take risk because when that ship was built, I'm sure they had to go on it and drive it and trust that they were not going to sink and die. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So when we are working on something, that is why we have God on our side, right? It is important for us to, if you're going to do this, just do it. Mm. Give it your all. Don't wait for tomorrow. Don't wait. And I believe we're speaking to ourselves here because some days it gets really discouraging when you feel like you're not seeing the result. Mm. Imagine if you were just telling, if we were telling you about this sheep and we're telling you that, yeah, but we had no picture evidence. You can't go online and find them. But now you can search it and see it and it will make sense. People would always praise what they see because they can see the result. Mm-hmm. 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 That's what people are going to praise, the result that they see. But you need to let yourself know that until that thing is full blown and can be seen, you are still a success. Every day you wake up and you put in 1 cent into that, is still a success. You got to speak life into it. Mm-hmm. You don't know how long it would take, but speak life into it. Mm-hmm. And finally, I'm just gonna say, because when we started this, we talked about the creativity, and Sammy, you mentioned, how if man could build this, how much more God? Mm. If man could build something that massive that carries aircraft, and you said 5,000 people?
Around 5,000 people.
And if man can build something like that, how much more God that built you? And he didn't make you out of already existing, like, copper and all that stuff. He pretty much came, molded you out from earth. And guess what? He put life from him to you. He breathed life into you. I want you to look at yourself in the mirror and imagine how many generations, 5,000 generations that you carry, and the ability for you to function in full capacity because God created you.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want us to reflect, think about it. And I'll come back to my old question that I asked earlier. What are you doing? What are you creating? What are you going to look back on and say, yes, I did that? And it's going to be a marvel to people that are to come. Not just a marvel, but something that would impact their life in one way or the other. As a father, what are you leaving behind for your children? As a mother, what are you modeling? As a spiritual leader, what kind of structures are you putting in place to make sure that the ones behind you succeed in ministry? As an entrepreneur, like how far are you pushing your business to make sure that you don't just have employees forever? You build new entrepreneurs from the ones you already have. As the government in power, what are you doing to make sure that everyone in your under your rulership are set up for success? As a teacher, how much knowledge are you passing on to make sure that everybody that comes under your tutorship is successful? Think about the capacity that we have. Think about the generations that depend on us. Think about everything that you're building and how it can be pushed forward. And when we get that, we get it all. And I just pray that as we reflect on this, and we think about our creative capacity, the capacity that God Himself placed in us, that we get up today and start working and not just sitting around waiting for directions. The directions have been given. It says, go ye, replenish, dominate, subdue. You have the capacity in you. You can do much more than you actually think.
Amen. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you and have a blessed one.
Take care.
Take care. Bye.
This is Sage Reflections.
Well, real life meets real faith.
Real conversations.
Relatable journey.
And uplifting truth.